I just went to the thrift store and I have brought back a treasure of unknown value. I am a Latin teacher, and so this immediately caught my eye because look at all the Latin it's covered in that we get to translate. It's an old, crunchy, crinkly record, and it has something to do with Catuli Carmina, which is the poems of Catullus. Catullus is actually one of my personal favorite Roman poets. I don't think he's the best Roman poet by any means, but Catullus has a special place in my heart. He's one of the Neoteric poets. Is this sort of new generation of poets that starts around the turn of the millennium. Julius Caesar's time, we're shifting from republic to empire, all of this crazy political stuff is happening, and these poets are moving away from the older traditional style of poetry, which is epic poetry, right? Homeric poetry. You're writing about the gods, heroes, all these big, huge cosmic struggles. And the Neoteric poets are done with that, right? They say that's old, we're bored with it, we want to do something new. And so they start writing on a smaller scale with very poetic kind of allusions and puns and clever structures, and they are sort of trying this new experimental thing. Catullus is one of the people who's paving the way for this new movement to take place. The Neoteric poets also are basing their work rather than on Homer, right, this big epic poet, they're basing it on other Greek Hellenistic poets who were before their time. So Catullus is taking a lot of his kind of inspiration at various points from a previous Greek poet, Callimachus. He also bases some of his work off of Sappho, which, if you know what the term sapphic means, Sappho is the ancient Greek poetess that term is based on. He's also just fun, right? Catullus is just fun because not only is he stepping away from this very high, grand, incredible style of poetry that had sort of been the norm, he's allowing himself to be more inappropriate, to be unserious, to be playful, to be wildly kind of raunchy at various points, which is very funny because he's doing it for the bit. That's the sort of poem that you might see get what's called boulderized, which means kind of taken out because it's considered inappropriate by like our cultural standards, for example, to where you might include the whole collection of Catullus, but we'll just leave out the ones that are really considered inappropriate, which makes stuff like this super interesting because I'm very curious which of his poems they're actually putting in here, right? Are they putting his poems of love? Are they putting his poems of, you know, speaking out against the political things that are going on? Are they putting his poems of wildly inappropriate stuff? So I have no idea what this is. I don't know if this is classical. I don't even know when this is from. I almost kind of just want to put it in and play it and see what it sounds like first, and then we'll look up some information on it. Let me show you the art real quick. They have both the Latin and the English translations on the back. Nice, thank you. It's crunchy. I'm so glad I've already talked about boulderization because fun! Okay. Two things. Many things, actually. Number one, I'm so glad I talked about boulderization. Because I did a little research into this. And first of all, the person who wrote this, his name is Carl Orff with two F's, pronounced like a seal. Apparently, much of this text, so like the whole middle section of this entire thing that he's written, is text from Catullus, right? So we have our famous here, O det amo, right? I hate and I love. We have vivamus, atque amemus, let us live and love. But I was digging and I couldn't find this first poem that he's doing anywhere. Like I couldn't locate it. He wrote this poem. So he wrote a poem in Latin. First thing, fascinating. Remember how we talked about Neoteric poets? They're taking a lot of inspiration from Greek Hellenistic poets. The first line of this entire piece is Eis Iona, which is not actually Latin, that's Greek. So first of all, he's already leading with the Greek, which is a fascinating way to set up this whole Catullus performance. And number two, here he says, in eternity I am yours, da 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 da. He gives us the whole translation, and then suddenly we run into a lack of translation. And it says, for obvious reasons, the translation of the following lines has been omitted. Guys, he wrote some crazy stuff in here. I'm not going to translate the Latin for you, but wowzers. Very bold of this man. I figured Catullus would be the one who was bringing the wild inappropriateness. This guy just added a whole thing onto the front of Catullus's works that was not here. And in that thing, he's being wildly inappropriate about. You'll notice he translates all of Catullus because I don't think he's actually used any of the poems that are inappropriate from Catullus. He just wrote one, mimicking Catullus's style, and put it at the front of this. That's bonkers. As I'm thinking about it now, actually, it makes so much sense, though, to lead with something that is very shocking. That is something that is very exceedingly Catullan to do, to just punch you in the face with the inappropriate, wildly out of social bounds thing that he just said, and then to grab your attention and pull you in for something else. It's also very Catullan in nature to draw from a poet in the past. This guy's drawing from Catullus now, to draw from a poet in the past and then just append something and kind of make it your own, or translate it and make it your own, or set it to music and make it your own. So very, very interesting reception of Catullus that we've got going on here. This is wildly different than what I expected I was gonna find whenever I cracked open this record finally. I figured it would be like some classical music, you know, kind of set over top of some Latin, maybe unnaturally set to rhythms it wasn't meant for. I don't think that's the case here. This is actually much more interesting. This person clearly has studied Latin enough to do some poetic composition of their own, some of it even within meter and rhythm, which, if you have ever tried to write Latin poetry, I'm speaking to like two people, it's exceedingly hard. It's quite difficult to make Latin fit into a certain poetic rhythm. And so clearly this person has an understanding of Latin poetry and how it works, and I'm very excited to listen to the rest of the record. You can find this pretty easily online. The writer is Carl Orff. It's called Catulli Carmina. I don't know if this exact version exists, but I've seen several other versions that exist online. So if you'd like to take a listen for yourself, you can find it there. Thanks for hanging out and listening with me. Bye. Great.